Hello everyone, we're here on this fine morning in the heart of Berlin, Neukölln, one of the most vibrant, exciting, busy, bustling neighborhoods in Berlin. Crazy nightlife, crazy people everywhere, and that is exactly what we're not going to talk about today. Come on in. Because today we're here to talk about our hotspot urban gardening. Hotspots are going to be thematics that we're going to use during BCB in October. And I'm joined today by two amazing bar personalities from Berlin, no other than Ruben from Velvet and Maria from the Green Door Bar. And we're going to be picking some fresh herbs and botanicals from the Prinzessinnengarten and then later process them and turn them into special ingredients from the bar. Also Matze, schön, dass wir hier sein dürfen. Wir sind jetzt im Prinzessinnengarten in Neukölln.
Genau, und dazu muss man sagen, es gibt zwei Prinzessinnengärten. Es gibt den Prinzessinnengarten am Moritzplatz, Prinzessinnengarten Kreuzberg und dann eben hier der Prinzessinnengarten Neukölln auf dem ehemaligen St. Jakobi-Friedhof, beziehungsweise teilweise ist es auch noch Friedhof. Inwiefern funktioniert das? Das, sagen wir mal, Akteure aus der Zivilgesellschaft sich um die Pflege von den Friedhöfen kümmern und sie als offene, grüne Orte für die Allgemeinheit erhalten. Dass immer mehr Flächen frei werden, eben auch innerstädtische Flächen. Und die Frage ist, wie man mit denen umgehen kann, wie kann man die Nachbarschaft einbinden, wie kann man das überhaupt als offenen Ort erhalten. Wie gesagt, es ist ziemlich egal, ob jemand Nachbar ist oder ob der von sonst wo kommt. Es sind alle Leute eingeladen, hier mitzumachen. Es gibt verschiedene Projekte, die hier auch noch angesiedelt sind, die jetzt nicht so direkt wir sind. Zum Beispiel im hinteren Teil ein Heilkräutergarten. Das ist eine Initiative vor allen Dingen von und für geflüchtete Frauen. Den Vorteil, dass wir erstens in so einer Art Naturraum stehen. Ich meine, der Baumbestand hier ist total wertvoll, fast in jedem. Es gibt hier rote Listearten, die hier vorkommen, verschiedene, sowohl was Insekten angeht, aber auch Fledermäuse, Pflanzenarten. Natürlich auch klar, dass es unsere Aufgabe und Pflicht ist, seltene Arten hier zu erhalten und zu fördern. Artemisia absinthium, also der echte Absinth, Heilpflanze, vor allen Dingen so bei Leber- und Gallebeschwerden. Und ansonsten eben, Zutat für diverseste Liköre. Enthält Thujon. Thujon ist nicht ganz ungiftig. Es geht auf die Leber in zu hohen Dosen.
Yeah, just a little bit of this one. And Bohnenkraut as well. There.
Summer savory.
Summer savory, okay.
It's also one of my favorites because the flavor is so robust, right? It's like so, it's spicy, it's flavorful, it has a very pungent green peppery aroma, which I love.
Like for example, lovage is a plant that I would never have imagined to use in a cocktail. It's the way I would go about using this is distillation. Distillation makes most things more elegant, gets a bit of that soup quality out of it, I would say. Whereas in a syrup, you would certainly preserve that robustness of the plant, I feel.
So here's what we got.
We'll see you with that at the bar. Step 2 of our little day here is Velvet, where we've spent the afternoon processing what we picked at the garden. So check this out and cheers. Welcome to the Velvet Lab. This is where we process all our ingredients. It's a tiny space, but it does the job. What we're gonna use today is our rotary. Herbs are super well suited for distillation. They turn brown when you process them in any other ways, and with this you can just get all the essential flavors out and concentrate them without them ever turning brown.
One technique that I really love to use is the concept of enfleurage. Enfleurage is one of the oldest techniques used to make rose absolu, for example, or like a really intense perfume. And it's one of the most expensive perfume techniques because it's labor intensive. So I usually use this with flowers, and we're using elderflower today. Just spreading the shea butter. The fat has to be solid at room temperature. I'll just spread the flowers on the surface, like this. And now we'll close the package. And let it rest for 1 day. The next day I put new flowers on top and discard the old ones. And after a few days you have a very, very intense, vibrant aroma of fresh cut flowers.
So we got this bouquet of mixed herb, and now we're gonna weigh it. Then we're gonna chop it up just roughly to add it to our blender. Add some vitamin C, because vitamin C prevents browning. So we're just gonna puree this herb mixture with vitamin C and our solvent super fine, because the finer it is, the more surface area you have for extraction. And then we're just gonna funnel the whole thing into our rotary evaporator flask. So we got our heating bath running here, which will bring the flask up to evaporation temperature. Vacuum pump attached, which brings down the boiling point, which allows us to kind of be more gentle with the ingredients. Because the more you have to heat it, the more you might disrupt some of the flavors. Then we got our cooling unit attached to the rotary, which is gonna make sure that the vapors that rise up from the evaporation flask are gonna condense. And all of this is then received in the receiving flask with all the essential oils, no color, very pure.
So this has been sitting for a while. So now it will go into the little bag, and I use 10% fat to spirit ratio. Now we're using the residual heat from the rotary evaporator to melt the fat and kind of combine the fat and the spirit. So now you see the fat solidified, all the flavor is in the spirit. A few years ago I started to slowly incorporate more seasonal and regional ingredients on the menu. It's a little bit experimental way to work for such a classic bar. Because the focus has always been more on classic cocktails and classic ingredients. Like there's always this concept in bartending that a drink should taste the same everywhere, you should get a drink everywhere. And for me this is kind of concept of the past, because if you just get the same bar menu in every bar you go around the world, it will be pretty boring pretty soon. So I think a bar should be a representation of a place, of a time. And for me, this means working with ingredients that are in season, that are fresh, that are the best quality in the moment. A simple drink, we already made enfleurage cognac, which is saturated with aroma of elderflowers. And also I infused some verjus with elderflower.
Here we are with our Prinzessinnengarten mixed distillate. Beautiful and clear and very ethereal, very aromatic. which is why we're probably only gonna use like 4 or 5 dashes of it in our drink. I thought about doing a bit of gimlet variation. Gimlet, obviously, some lime cordial as well. I really like about distillates. You can always make clear drinks with them. Also very accurate to measure, because 5 dashes from this bottle are always gonna be the same, whereas a recipe that says a handful of mint can be a bit vague depending on who's doing the drink. I'm gonna put a bit of vermouth in there, putting a little bit of gin, because obviously gimlet has gin. So this will stay fresh for us until winter, and it will not change the flavor profile at all. Whereas in winter, with our approach of seasonality, we couldn't even get those fresh herbs. Velvet drinks usually require a bit of sake to bring out a bit of elegance in there. Ahead of that, drops of a Kirsch eau de vie, just to finish this. That was a good few drops. And there's our Prinzessinnengarten Gimlet.